It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
And good morning. He's Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 86690 Red Eye. I'm sorry, that pause was because I started laughing when I read the headline of a story. I wasn't even going to start with this, but I just started laughing. Democratic Senator Brown, grocery price inflation due to bonuses and buybacks.
Okay.
While discussing his 2024 Senate reelection campaign and the 2024 Senate reelection campaign of Senator Jon Tester during a joint interview that took place on MSNBC, Senator Brown of Ohio argued that people are seeing the prices at the grocery store go up because consumers are paying the price of executive bonuses and stock buybacks.
Okay.
All right. Just lie. Just lie.
Just make it up.
Just make it up as you go. And that's what got me laughing. That's why there was a pause when we started. What I have to do before I go on the air is not look at anything because things are so insane that it's happening more frequently. Right before I go on the air, I'm scanning headlines. I read one and we're on the air, and there's a pause, and then I start laughing. It's like
buybacks.
Stop it.
It's just stupid. But I guess just reach for anything. Just reach for anything. You know what it is? I think inflation. I think it's because we started using ATMs and we don't go to the bank and have tellers, as many tellers in the bank.
Stop it, Obama.
Flashback to Obama years. I think that's what it is. I think it's the ATMs. See, the ATMs, they charge you fees. The tellers didn't charge a fee. The ATMs charge a fee, and that makes everything go up, the cost of everything.
But I didn't have a teller at the airport, and my bank at the bank doesn't charge me.
That's a problem.
There's not a teller at the airport.
We need a teller at the airport. See, that's what I mean. They've got you. You're a captive audience there. You have no choice but to pay the fee, and then, of course, that causes inflation. Boom.
But you know something?
You're welcome.
When you think about it, the convenience, because this is...
They're drunk arguing. That's what they're doing.
No, this is a point that if you're a young person, you don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Young people, and I'm not insulting young people
they
here.
They just weren't around then.
You just weren't around.
Right.
And so there's no...
We'll insult them later. But
you have no perspective. Mm-hmm. You have no, I got my paycheck. I better be able to get to the bank because if I don't get to the bank by Friday...
Oh, man. No, forget it.
And the abbreviated hours they may have Saturday, and some were closed on Saturday, I can't have money till Monday.
Yeah.
And we forget about the fact that, and I hardly ever, because I just don't use my debit card.
Mm-hmm.
I'll use it at the bank, where at my branch bank right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if there's a problem, I can go in right there.
Right.
And they know me.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever happens, if it happens, and I try to take money out during the day in case anything, which I rarely do. It's amazing how little cash I carry these days. Right. When I travel a little bit more, but sometimes when I travel, maybe once every 2 years, to sit there and be in an airport, go, man, I shouldn't be traveling without cash because you should always have cash just for an emergency.
Sure.
That's the whole be prepared to being a Boy Scout.
Mm-hmm.
I got the credit cards, but if something happens, it's always great to have a couple of 20s go, hey, can you take care of this for me, whatever. Right. Or even more than 20s, have a bunch of 20s and be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just never know what's going to happen. And so to go up there and pay $3 to be able to get $300 out is actually a great deal when you think about it. People go crazy about the fees, but when you look and say, yeah, but I couldn't do that.
I can't get
when I was young.
I had to travel, and I also had to do it at the time when the bank was open.
Right.
So all of that cost and consideration is well worth the $3.
Yeah, or whatever it is. I don't even know what it's Mostly it's around $3, isn't it? Something
Yeah,
like that.
my bank actually does refunds if it's not one of their ATMs, they refund the fee.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, small bank, but that's
Oh,
one of
okay.
the incentives they have. So,
Oh, no, that's
Yeah.
cool, though. That's,
Yeah.
that would.
I think it
That
is limited. I don't use the ATM enough. I think it is though capped at something. I don't know. Maybe I think I saw it somewhere $20 or $30 a month, up to $20 or $30 in a month or something.
You know what I really like, though, recently?
Hmm.
Because I did in the last week go to the ATM at my bank.
Yeah.
There used to be 5, 6, 7 cars in line. There's no cars in line anymore.
There's nobody there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which makes it feel weird. Like you're not supposed to be there. When you're there and there's nobody there, it's like, is this place still open? What is this? Because I went to one of my bank's locations recently, and they also had the big double trash can thing, the big dumpster trash can that they have out behind buildings, in their little trash can walled thing, but it was open. And I thought, man, are they moving? Because there's nobody here at this bank. There's nobody here.
I remember the days I only took out one car loan in my entire life.
Mm.
And I can still remember when I did it to get my 1980 Pontiac Sunbird, which I believe was $4,000 something.
Oh.
And I think, I can't remember it, so maybe I took out a $2,000 loan.
Yeah.
I took out a car loan. Well, I used to work at a subsidiary of HSBC Bank when I was in Buffalo called Marine Midland. Met a lot of people. Well, one guy I know, hey, Fred, if you're listening, once in a while he'll listen. Fred, I believe his father was a bank manager. What he wanted to do in life was be a bank manager.
Right.
And you sit there and you think about it. Well, bank managers back, when his father would have been doing it 80 years ago was completely different than what a bank manager is today, probably of a branch. You didn't have the modern systems of credit ratings like you do today.
Well, you had to be, as a bank manager back then, chief underwriter.
Chief underwriter, and which meant you were part of the community. You knew the people that came into your bank.
You had to.
That
was part of the vetting process.
And that was, I'll never forget, because when I first met him, he told me that's what he wanted to do. He just loved that part of helping to build a community through a bank, even if it was a national bank, or a big regional state bank back then.
Right.
More often is what you had. It still was, you still had control. You were the underwriter.
Right.
It went on. If a loan went bad, it was on you. But so you got to know the people.
Yeah.
It wasn't, okay, what's your credit rating here? All right, all right, there's a credit
It's
rating.
a wonderful life. That's just,
you're great point.
Oh, Don, how much money do you need? How much right now? How much? That kind of thing. That was based on the fact that those relationships had to be there.
You're right.
And it was part of the vetting process. Now, Frank Capra could have taken that maybe a little to the extreme for that storytelling purpose, but it was based on reality.
Because they were trying to make the point that the bank never made a profit.
Richard Ranke, who was a self-taught engineer, who in agriculture, you see the irrigation systems that we have. This is the guy who, in his barn, came up with that idea. Well, in order to get the farmers to pay him, he would go out there, and they would be out in the field. So you'd have to go out there. They would take just a plain piece of paper and write on it, pay Mr. Ranke this amount from my account, and he would take it to their bank, and that's how he got paid. That relationship is everything. It was part of the vetting process.
And so what I did was, when I wanted a car loan, I found out what branch he worked at. Now, I was out of banking at that time, but we were bill collectors together in college. So he knew, you knew the people there, and you knew probably, I won't speak for now, but back then, when you were a bill collector and you did it for a couple of years, you learned not to get in debt because you didn't want to be one of the people that you were calling.
Right.
You knew how it could destroy your life. You really did.
Yeah.
And back then, and I don't know whether it was true or not, but I know it's a problem, but back then I remember always, we were being taught one of the biggest things that breaks up a marriage is debt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
is, people spending.
It's one of the leading causes, yeah.
And so that was really pounded into you that, look, you can help these people by tell them, counsel them that, because we want, and a lot of these young customers, if they can develop good borrowing skills, you can have them as a good customer,
right.
For the rest of their lives at your bank. That was your goal.
Right.
Well, I went in and boom, got the loan from Fred. And he knew who I was. I don't think he went through. Now, maybe by 1980, they had more of a system where they could check, but I don't really think he did any checks on me. He knew me.
Right.
He knew everything about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we still had communicated that time. He knew what my job was. He knew what I was doing.
Right.
And so it was like, yeah, you pay your bills. So
right.
It's just interesting how that has changed, where not that it's necessarily wrong, because and I know the Democrats have brought up before that it's wrong to use a credit score. Remember credit scores? I have met and I've met people that work in finance and banking that are on the left and right, so it doesn't even matter your political ideology. And they've told me you'd be amazed how accurate a credit rating tells you what type of a person you're dealing with.
It also tells you what's going on with that person at that time.
Yeah. And it's not everybody, but
no.
They said basically as a barometer, as an initial barometer to give you confidence in not just whether they pay their bills, but what kind of a person they are.
Yeah.
They said it's extremely accurate.
It's used in writing insurance policies.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that they wanted to
change.
To stop.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is that it does tell you, it can tell you if there is whatever effect there might be. Because what are we talking about? We're talking about liability and risk, whether it's lending or writing an insurance policy. Now, this is what gets back to the whole case against Trump by the AG in New York, that he was somehow acting illegally through his assessments of his property values, when he actually put a disclaimer on them, we've learned, in order to get favor with banks and insurance companies. Well, who's not trying to get favor with banks and insurance companies? At every turn. I talked about, the incentive that my bank offers. But we talked about the back and forth with any central appraisal district and being able to challenge your property values. And all of that, there is assessment in everything. And we can't, as a society, unfortunately, always rely on, well, I know that guy and he's good for it. There are plenty of handshake deals that are done. But I will tell you right now, behind closed doors, they will tell you it's, well, because I know what that person is worth, or that person's value is, or that person's credit score, or whatever it is. I know everything I need to know about that person in order to take this risk with that person.
Or if you knew, and I remember having this talk with my old buddy Fred, the bank manager, who said, because we were talking about the relationships you build, he said the thing is, what you learn is, because you got to know the community, you could know somebody who would make money, and you would say, okay, they can pay off this loan because they make enough money.
Yeah.
But there were other people you would meet that might not have that salary that the other people have, but that their mentality is, I pay my bills before I even eat.
Exactly.
And so you didn't judge them necessarily just on their salary. Not that the salary doesn't matter, but the fact is you would judge it and say, okay, what is their character?
It's their behavior. I mean, you can look at people who started, with little to nothing and we think about Warren Buffett or Donald Trump. And you say, okay, but because Donald Trump can go through a bankruptcy, then all of a sudden a few years later, he's a billionaire again. You know what I mean? He wrote in his book the one time he saw a homeless guy, and he goes, that homeless guy is worth $1 billion more because I'm in $1 billion debt right now, and that guy is worth $1 billion more because he doesn't have any debt. He owes nobody anything. And then, we talk about the mindset of, the creation of wealth, those individuals. And that's what, you can rely on in business settings. You understand, well, that's a person who behaves that way. Well, a credit score will often reflect that behaviorally, this is what the person does. This has been there. I have none, and I'm proud of this. I'm not trying to brag, but I am proud of it. I have not one late payment ever in my history on anything, ever. Not one.
And I've had one.
Yeah.
You know what it was?
Hmm.
My car insurance.
Oh.
I had, I thought I'd mailed it out, and I got the pink. I got the pink envelope. This is before you did it online,
right? Yeah.
And I absolutely panicked. And it said your insurance has expired. You missed. Said, how could I miss it? I tore apart my house. It was down in between my seat.
Yeah.
The payment.
Oh,
and
man.
I called them, and I was like, "Is my insurance?" He goes, "Nah, you've had a great history. We didn't cancel you."
Right.
I'm like, oh, thank God. But that,
right.
that wouldn't have gone against my credit rating anyway. But like you, I've never missed. But that,
well,
again,
because it's about being paranoid about that and behaving in a way that I owe this, and it's my responsibility to do that.
Part of my because it is paranoia. For me, paying bills, there's an incredible paranoia.
Yeah.
And you and I asked John Taffer that one time from Bar Rescue.
Why aren't people looking at the debt, their business debt, the same way?
And somebody has $900,000 in debt. Why aren't they freaking out? If I sat there and I had if I had $20,000 cash flow a month and it went down to $15,000, before I ever lost money, I'd be panicking.
Oh, yeah.
What happened? We got to solve this problem.
Right.
And we asked the question, is it because we don't deal in cash anymore? It's just numbers?
Just on
paper.
paper.
He goes, maybe, but that was foreign to us. But I know my paranoia came from being a bill collector.
I think
that was great training.
I think part of it is generational, but generational has to do also with the fact that we don't have money, on hand. We're not using checks even anymore, and it's electronic payment and everything else. There's a convenience, but there is a greater responsibility with that convenience.
866-90-RED-EYE.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
It's a family business, farming for the most part.
Small family farms made up 88% of the farm count and operated 46% of the farmland, but generated only 19% of the total value of production.
USDA economic researcher Catherine Lacey presenting findings from the latest edition of America's Farm and Ranch's At a Glance report. Other information gleaned from the report for the 2022 calendar year includes
the share of farms with a low-risk operating profit margin varied by farm size in 2022. About 26% of all U.S. farms held any debt in 2022, and the majority, which was 67% of farms with debt, used only one lender.
Farm households in general were not considered low income or low wealth. Also,
among socially disadvantaged farm operations, non-Hispanic black farms in particular differ most compared to non-Hispanic white farms in terms of size, specialization, and financial outcomes.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the bottom of the hour, the recognition out there, slowly but surely, because Congress is going to go on a break here very soon for a month.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I read an article yesterday, and you and I spent a significant amount of time on it the other day because of the debt, the deficit for the first 2 months of the fiscal year, $383 billion.
Right.
And finally, there's slowly but surely recognition. We got problems ahead.
Yep.
And we talked a lot about the Fed earlier. Has the Fed put that into the equation about how the debt and everything is going to affect interest rates over the years?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Gary McNamara and Eric Harley taking your calls. 1-866-90-RED-EYE.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. This story here, 12% of retired Americans plan to return to the workforce in 2024.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount for 1 year. I mean, that's planning on. That's not 12% in the workforce. That's 12% of retired Americans.
Saying they're planning on going.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
And they say, a lot of it is money. A lot of it's also boredom.
On the latter, I can see that, and on the former, of course, I can see that. Some of it, of course, probably has to do with inflation, but I don't ever want to be bored. You know what I mean?
I know.
If I get to that retirement point, at some point, I will have to retire. But I just don't want to get to that point.
I like to be bored as long as I know I'm going to be busy.
Yeah, if I've got something on the docket,
right. I'm okay with the downtime.
Yeah.
I mean, I can be, not that I often am, but there are days weekends I'll wake up on a Saturday and I'll be a slug all day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just don't feel like, but I know that come Sunday again, it's back into it, and I look forward to that.
Right.
So I can do both. I don't think I could be. I just don't think I could. I just don't think I can retire. I don't think. And people say, well, you could volunteer, you could do that, and it's like, yeah, but I have too much of my dad in me, which is
right. Yeah.
Which is. Not that you can't be productive in volunteer work, but it's not the same.
Right. It's
not that it's not morally good. It's absolutely morally good.
It's satisfying in a different way.
Right. But it's like, how are you built how are you built? What is your experiences over your entire life? What has really driven you?
Well,
and for me, it's been be productive in the marketplace.
Well, that's it. And, the difference is that when, you go out, you have a career, you work, and you're working to provide for yourself. And then when you go and you volunteer, you're working to provide for others. And I care nothing about providing for others. And that's the difference is that, I'm going to show up. I'm going to do it because you're supposed to.
But everybody, it's about me.
But it's not. If it's not for my benefit. And by the way, I found out it's wrong to say, "Hey, you're going to eat that" when you're actually volunteering at the food pantry. You're not supposed to say that. It is a different. My lovely sister, she has really filled her hours with volunteering. She's not at retirement age. But that's basically her full-time job has been volunteering, and she does a lot of good work. I do volunteering, and it is good when that can be busy too. When that's busy, it's like, okay, what do we got to get done? What do we want to do? Or sitting on the board of directors for a nonprofit, which I've done a couple of times, and those things,
and so
those kind of things where, hey, we want to do this or accomplish this. How do we get this done? And then you all kind of work together. But same mindset.
Yeah, but the key is full time.
Yeah.
You want to volunteer full time, or do you want to be in the? It's not about whether you give back, because I know you give back. It's like when you come to what have I done my entire life to be productive in the marketplace. Yep. And I think the other thing is, I know for me, we talked about this earlier this week. We actually do something that most people do everything that they can possibly do to avoid.
We talk politics.
You are a little bit. I think you are built different. I didn't say better. You're built different from other people when you're drawn and your adrenaline is about doing something that most people don't want to do, that they try to avoid, which is talking politics or talking about, talking about what's going on in the world, especially when there's such anger if somebody disagrees with you. And you and I know, we know talk show hosts that called themselves conservative a couple of years ago that in 2016, 2017, that all quit. It just got to be too tough. There's too much rage. There's too much anger. And it's like, did you understand the business you were getting into? And did you think it was all? It's not music radio where you can say most of the time, all right, let's for the 5,487th day. Talk about what that woman who's dating that football player is doing today. What kind of dress did she wear on her 34th birthday yesterday? Oh, I thought it was so beautiful. It was so wonderful. It's not that kind of happy talk all the time.
Coming up on your classic smooth jazz station, we will have some Dave Koz. Right after this message from our great sponsors.
Oh, what was the one? I can't think of it. Who's the artist?
Kenny G.
In Wayne's World. Remember that?
Yeah.
The drill.
I knew exactly where you're going.
The drill bit. Garth is under listening to it, and it's like he's imagining a drill in his teeth without any Novocaine.
Exactly.
But that's interesting there. All right, very very quickly, I want to get to this here in just a moment about the article written on just the interest on the debt and where the debt is going. But just very quickly, because we had talked about it, you can go back when our podcast comes out here in a few minutes and listen, because we a lot of the beginning of the show was about the impeachment inquiry and Hunter Biden and everything and where that's going. What I expect in the next couple of days will be interesting. I do think that that Jordan and Comer may call Hunter Biden in now that they have an official impeachment inquiry.
Yeah.
Just to double down that this is official. And then I believe they'll probably call him after in January, after their 4 weeks is over. And expect him to, and then there will be that sense of, because remember, everything is politics. And I don't believe one of the questions that Democrat or Republicans get consistently is, yeah, but you're going to have people angry if you don't impeach him in the next couple of months. And you and I heard that the other day and said, I don't think so. I don't think that's what I think everyone knows. I think most Republicans know that even if you impeached him, you're not going to remove him from office unless you can prove the bribe, because Biden's on video and on tape saying, here is the check, Joe, and it's President Xi giving him the $50 million check, and they have it on tape, and then they've got the actual deposit, into his particular account.
Right.
Unless you get that, in all likelihood, the Senate would not remove him from office. I don't believe that that's what I do believe Republicans understand, and I'm talking about the rank and file voter, understand that impeachment backfired for the Democrats on Trump. Didn't get them at all what they thought it was going to get.
Right.
I do think that the Republicans' goal is to weaken him as much as they possibly can, so they wish to extend everything out. And so as long as his suspense is there and the Democrats don't have any argument and they're stuck on the same argument that Joe, because we got it yesterday again, Joe just loved his son. That's the only thing. How dare Republicans go after him for just loving his son, and love is love. And it's like, wow.
And Joe is Joe.
I didn't think they'd use the gay marriage debate in order to defend influence peddling, but hey, what the heck when you're backed into a corner.
Yep, here we are, yeah.
And the other one is that the illusion of influence, and we've broken that down many times, how that doesn't hold any water, and they haven't had a new argument for months. And they're not going to get one. And I think the Republicans look at this as an opportunity to pound that day in and day out, as well as everything else. And I think they believe that's their goal, to make it so he doesn't win the election in 2020. And then maybe after the elections, 2020, in 2024, and after Election Day, then they'll impeach him.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, I think that you may see that they file for another subpoena for another date in January, and then at that point,
could be,
because they have other witnesses coming in also in January.
Yeah, right.
I think Schwerin's coming in. I don't know. There are a couple other names. I just don't have them at the top of my head. And finally, you and I talked about how the interest on the debt is just the potential to destroy so many things, monetarily speaking, in the United States. I don't think that the public understands what may be coming. You and I talked about, the Bloomberg story, where Bloomberg estimated beginning of November that the interest payments on the U.S. debt now are over $1 trillion. I'm reading here from Deck the Halls with Fiscal Folly, Jack Salmon from National Review. and just going through everything about the debt and talking about the fact that, what the problem is the last 2 years, the interest rates have been way up from what they were, and all this debt's being refinanced. The average maturity is like every 6 years. And he talks about how this is when you actually take it up now. He was stating that the interest payments on the debt have already increased from $352 billion in fiscal year 2021 to $659 billion in fiscal 2023, and they are likely to be around $900 billion for this year. Well, it's already at $1 trillion, according to Bloomberg.
Right.
So anywhere between $900 billion and $1 trillion is what it is right now, and they won't know until the year's actually over what it's going to be. And it's only going to keep going up as, bonds and treasury bills come to, their maturity date, and then boom, all that money. If it's $10 trillion, then that goes from 0.000001 interest that you were getting on it when you bought that 5 years ago to, 5.5%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the devastating part of it, as he points out, and then talks about the fact that we're likely to see debt servicing costs consistently exceed 3% of GDP. For comparison, the federal government spent 3% of GDP on the entire defense budget in fiscal years 2022. This would severely cripple the government's ability to address critical spending priorities and would put large government programs at risk. We talked about how the debt has been increased $383 billion in 2 months. Wow. Just 2 months of this fiscal year. You talk about if that was to continue, you're talking about the debt in non-COVID years where there's no emergencies would be between 1.5 and 2 trillion. The estimate is $1.7 trillion dollars for the deficit, and all of that new debt has to be financed at a higher interest rate also. And we already talked about, if you look at it right there, because of just from 2021 to 2023, we increased $350 billion, which no longer can go to programs. And so they're still going to give it to programs, so you borrow that money because a lot of that money's already been allocated.
Yep.
So they just borrow more of it,
Yep.
and then that gets financed at the highest interest rate. And he talks about what we've been talking about, how you get into that monetary cycle of interest debt.
Yep.
Or death, excuse me.
Right.
Where you can't get out of it.
There's and we've been talking about it forever, but also that that jump from 0% interest, to 5, well over 5, and we talked about that. That's a massive move.
Yeah.
That's even different from where we were back in the 70s and early 80s when you saw the jump. Even though it was a much higher interest rate, we were conditioned at those higher interest rates. We didn't start at 0. When you go from 0 to 5, it changes the nature of everything. But on the debt, it goes,
But the percentage of debt to GDP was way lower at that time.
Way lower. Right. And that's the problem, going forward too. And what's going to happen next year? The Fed yesterday pointing to 3. Think about this. Last meeting, we could see one more hike. It's not going to happen at the next, before the end of the year, but we could see one more hike, and we're, fairly confident it could be one more hike. All the way to now, no, we're thinking, maybe 3. I mean, that's basically what they were pointing. 3 drops in interest rates sometime in 24. They know a recession is coming, and it's coming in hot. They know it.
And that also means lower revenues to the Treasury while the spending is still way up there.
Yep. That's a problem. Yep. I know Wall Street celebrated, and it looks, oh, man, happy days are here again. That's temporary.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's our Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, I need to just
Chill
sit back,
out.
chill out just a little bit. It's been one of those shows. Chill out. Christmas music in the background.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have an eggnog without the rum. You know, I've never
What's the
had.
point?
I've never had eggnog with rum.
I've never had that. I've had what was it? What they call it? Wassail with rum at a Christmas party at one of the first radio stations I ever worked at, and they made it in a crock pot, so it was hot, and I think it was rum. It could have been vodka, but they served it, and you don't drink it. You're not chugging hot cider, so you didn't drink a lot of it. But I've had that. That's the only thing that I've had like that. No eggnog with alcohol in it ever. Yeah.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.